Yo, what's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and today we are taking a look at the Carolina Hurricanes as going into this year's trade deadline. The Hurricanes have had a pretty good start to their season. Things got off to a little bit of a bumpy start. They were on the outside of the playoffs looking in. And then, obviously, in December, going into this year, they went on that really nice, I think it was a 17 or 18 game point streak. I think there was an 11 game winning streak involved in that. And they've dipped a little bit since then, but they are still at the top of the Metropolitan Division. And the Carolina Hurricanes seem destined for a playoff run this year. Hopefully, a good cup run is in store for Carolina. So, there's two players that I was able to come up with mock trades here for the Hurricanes going into this year's deadline. And I'll give you my predictions for what I think the Canes will do at this year's I think it's March 3rd, NHL trade deadline. So let's get right into it. So the actual trade, the mock trades are the exact same, but for two separate players on the West Coast. Now, Carolina is known as an organization that doesn't necessarily make big moves at the deadline. So I'm going to preface that right now. This is not an organization that's known for making those big splashes at the trade deadline. They're known as a team that's a little bit more conservative with draft picks and prospects and making sort of some of these moves. And to be honest, the Hurricanes, from the assets I've seen here, it doesn't really make sense unless they want to trade full-on prospects. It doesn't make sense here for Carolina to make any trades, if I'm going to be honest, because the price that it's going to cost the Hurricanes, I don't really know if it's worth it. And I think Carolina is one of those teams that if they really want to make a splash, they're going to have to really sacrifice an arm and a leg in this deal, quite literally. And we'll get to that right now. So we're going to start off with the Carolina Hurricanes and the Vancouver Canucks potentially going after the Canucks' current captain, Bo Horvat. Now, Bo Horvat, if you guys don't know the story about Horvat, I've made plenty of videos on that here on the channel. But what you're looking at with Bo Horvat is a guy that is a very good, talented player. He's got some career numbers this year, which I think some teams are a little concerned about long term and maybe extending him. But Carolina is a good fit for him because he's a center. It adds a little bit more center depth there to Carolina. You never have enough of that. And I think he's a guy that even if he plays on the second or third line and even second power play minutes, I think it's a pretty good fit for Carolina. There's a guy that could easily jump into the top six as well. But the problem is the price. And I don't know if the Canucks fans, I think the Canucks fans will be happy with it. I don't know if the Hurricane fans will say this is worth it. And the price I have is this year's first round pick here in 2023. Forward Seth Jarvis and Dylan Coghlan. And to be honest, those are some really good young, cheap assets on the Hurricanes right now that are very good, prolific players. Dylan Coghlan is a guy that has he's a little bit older. He's 24 years old, and maybe he's taken a little bit longer to develop. But you look at some of the other defensemen here over the last couple years that he's beaten out in Carolina. Carolina's drafted some pretty good defensemen. And, here's Dylan Coghlan kind of taking over and kind of jumping onto the scene. He came over from the Vegas Golden Knights. I believe he was a part of the Pacioretty deal, if I'm not mistaken. He's only played 16 games this year, though. So if I'm Carolina, listen, Jacob Slavin is on LTIR. If he comes back anytime soon, Dylan Coghlan isn't going to be playing as much. It's a young defenseman, so add some depth to the Vancouver Canucks. And he's an RFA, so they have a little bit of control over him this summer. And again, he's still fairly young at 24 years old. But really, the key asset in this deal is Seth Jarvis. And that's why I think there's going to be some hesitation from the staff in Carolina, because this is a really good hockey player and has the potential to, what they're getting in Bo Horvat, this is what Seth Jarvis is likely to become in his prime at the NHL level. Now, Seth Jarvis, at a ripe old age of 20 years old, is already in his second NHL season. His goal production isn't really there. He's got 17 goals all of last season. He's got 7 goals this season. So maybe they're able to catch him when his value is a little bit lower. But the Winnipeg, Manitoba native is definitely a guy that I think that Vancouver could use as a sort of a centerpiece to rebuild that forward core. And you look at some of the other young players there, like Niels Höglander and Vasily Podkolzin. I think adding a guy like Seth Jarvis and even Dylan Coghlan in that mix, yeah, they might not be the high-end players, but hopefully that's what Vancouver will be doing in the draft, so that might not matter anyway. You need those other players. You can't just have a ton of building block players, right? You can't just have a ton of number 1, 2, and 3 overall picks in your lineup. That's not realistic. And look how that worked out for the Oilers. Not really so great. So, when you look at it in that sense, this is a group in Carolina that maybe they're willing to make that move because Coughlin's value is seen as a little bit, he's a guy that's injured and he doesn't play that much, at least this season. Seth Jarvis has the potential to become a Bo Horvat-esque player in terms of maybe 20 to 30 goals a year, but he's not there yet, and Carolina's in a cup window. They want to win a Stanley Cup right now, and I think that making this move definitely bolsters their roster, but again, it does come at a price. So now here's the other trade, and again, the Hurricanes are giving up the same exact 3 assets. I have the 2023 first-round pick, Seth Jarvis, and Dylan Coghlan to the San Jose Sharks in exchange for Timo Meier. Now, Timo Meier is a really nice asset here if I'm the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, the Carolina Hurricanes literally can plug and play Seth Jarvis straight up for Timo Meier. Timo Meier is an upgrade in that regard. A lot of people will have some questions about how good, you have to look at it this way as well. Like, I look at Bo Horvat and Timo Meier as guys that, we always talk about the Rod Brind'Amour structure. Can they play in the Rod Brind'Amour structure? And I absolutely think both of these guys can play under his system. So I'm not really too concerned about that. I think that they will fit quite nicely with the way the Hurricanes play. Timo Meier is seen as kind of a power forward. Maybe not as much as he used to be because he has that scoring touch, which is maybe overshadowing his little bit of a rough agitator style of game. But same thing for Bo Horvat. And I think that if I really had to choose between these two guys, I think I'd take Timo Meier, if I'm going to be honest, right now today. It's not even that I don't think Bo Horvat's a good player. I think Vancouver's going to ask for a lot. And I think that, honestly, they might get a better offer from a Colorado or a Vegas or even a Dallas Stars team or Boston that I just don't think Carolina is going to be willing to do here. It's not necessarily a knock on the Hurricanes. It's just kind of the way things are. And, like I said, you look at this top line, it's Teravainen, Aho, and Jarvis. So they're exposing Seth Jarvis, a 20-year-old player, on the first line. They could kind of sell that to San Jose and say, listen, he's playing on the top line of the best team in our division. He could play first line on your team, right, in San Jose. So, again, you're bringing Timo Meier. He fits perfectly on that right side. And like I said, though, but for Timo Meier, it's the same thing. Carolina's going to have to pony up some assets here. And Seth Jarvis is the most valuable asset, even more so than that first-round pick, because this is a kid that's projected to be, I think a lot of people in Carolina see him as a first-line player, which he's already at, but again, if you want to win a Stanley Cup right now, would you rather have Timo Meier right now or Seth Jarvis? And that's where Carolina has to separate. Is the value enough where we're giving up a first and a depth defenseman in order to make this deal work? Timo Meier really has to be worth it. I think Carolina would like some kind of security with him long term. And we know how Carolina is about, long contracts. Tom Dundon has been very vocal about that with his team. So if I had to choose today, I would say that they go after Timo Meier. I think Timo Meier is the better fit overall. They've got some good centers there already. And Aho, Stastny, Stahl, Marty Necas can also play center. So they've got guys that can play center. It's not that Bo Horvat isn't a great fit. If I had to choose today, if I had a gun to my head, I'm going to go with Timo Meier. And I think, when you really look at the situation with the Hurricanes, this is a very good hockey team, and it's more so about just adding to see what they can do. And now with Max Pacioretty out, likely the rest of this season with another really big setback to his injuries. He came back last month, really didn't play much, and now he's out probably for the rest of the season. I think this is a perfect opportunity for Carolina to say, listen, with Pacioretty out for the rest of this season, let's go out, let's make a big splash here at the trade deadline, something we don't typically do, and maybe they'll find a little bit more success in the postseason. So guys, let me know what you think down below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you again next time.